Thank you for coming to the webinar. Really, what we're trying to do today is just really show you what we look at and how we operate. So, hopefully, if you have rental properties, you can look at some ways that you can really increase your return on investment, your ROI. I'm your host, I'm Chase. I'm with Rental Management Group here in Houston. I have our beautiful sidekick, Ari, here. She is going to help us with the webinar. Hi, Ari. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here and learn as well. So I talked with
Well,
investors every day, onboarding them, but this is actually very informative for me too. So I'm really excited.
yeah, we're super excited. So let's get into it. So just some quick admin. This will be recorded, so it will be sent out afterwards. And then it'll go about 30 minutes, and then we'll have some 15-minute Q&A at the end. So we'll answer questions live. This is live. We're real and in person. We will post some links in the chat, so be looking for that. And let's have some fun, just like our little smiley face guy here. I was a part of the artwork team here for this webinar, so hopefully you guys enjoy some of
Yeah.
that. So let's put up some of the polls. Let's put up a poll for this. Obviously, the webinar is focused around ROI. So I just want to know what you guys think about ROI, what affects the performance. So I'm going to post a poll. And the question is, what do you think contributes most to the performance of a rental property, performance of the investment? So let me post that real quick, and I'm interested to see what our results are. Polls. Let's launch the poll. Hopefully you guys can see it. Okay, yeah, question. Again, what do you think contributes most to the performance of a rental property? One would be the rental rates, two would be maintenance costs, three would be reduced vacancy, and four would be other operating costs, i.e., or expenses, i.e., taxes, insurance, that type of thing. I'll let this poll run just for a little bit while we go over just a quick little admin. Ari's going to post a link in the chat. It's not a sales pitch, no obligation or anything like that. But if you guys want us to take a look at your current rental property or portfolio, we would be happy to do that and see if you're losing money or leaving money on the table and in the area, we can look at that for you and we'd be happy to help you out. Ari will post a link in the chat. If you want to schedule something, you're more than welcome. But again, no sales pitch, nothing like that. Ari, thank you for doing that. I'm gonna leave the poll up a little bit longer just so we can get a few more responses here. But back to the poll question, if hopefully you guys can see it. Again, what do you think contributes most to the performance of a rental property? Rental rates, maintenance costs, reduced vacancy, or other operating costs, taxes, insurance, etc. So if you guys can do the poll, that would be great. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll so that way we can look at it. All right, so half of you said rental rates. Let me see if I can share the results. Half the people said rental rate, half the people said reduced vacancy. So, yes, I'm going to stop sharing. It looks like half of you are right. It's actually reducing the vacancy time. And this is what we're going to cover today. And you ask, okay, so what goes into reducing vacancy time? And really, there's three main factors that we see. There's a lot of factors that go into this, obviously, but really at the core of it's really better residents, proactive communication, and great vendors. And I'll go into each area because I'll show you some of the metrics that we track, and then I'll show you some of the cool technology and systems that we use. Let's get into that real quick. So the first one is better residents. Right now, we use a platform called Findigs for our screening. Okay. I don't know if this is available to the average consumer. We have it as a property management company, but I'll tell you the things that are important and why we like Findigs. The first one is when COVID happened, we got a high rate of, we actually use a different system. We got a high rate of fraud, identity fraud. So people were obviously stealing identities. Everyone was by their computer during COVID. They were bored and they were stealing identities, and so everybody was going crazy during that for housing. So we were getting a lot of fraud on that. What Findigs does, it actually forces the potential applicants to take a selfie and they have to upload their actual ID from the phone. So it does all this cross database scanning, and then we're able to make sure that they are the actual person, which is obviously important because we don't want to prove somebody that goes in there and just stays in there and then they turn into a squatting situation, that type of thing. So that's the main thing. But with the system, we're checking credits, rental history, all that stuff. So we want to make sure that we get a very good tenant in there. And I'll show you the reason why that's important here in a second on the metrics. If you were going to look at any screening criteria metric, I would say the credit score would be the absolute most important one. Now, we do verify income. They need to, according to our screening standards, make 3 to 4 times the rental income. But even if they make below that and their credit is outstanding, that means they budget their money well and they actually take care of things. So we would, if we had to throw everything else out, we would look at the credit score. So if you're looking for a screening system, there's a lot of good free platforms out there. Make sure it's very good against identity theft and pay highly attention to the credit score. Now, I'm not saying that other stuff doesn't matter, but those we feel are the most important. So, why is it important to get a good tenant in there? Obviously, they pay on time. Like for us, we average about three. These are our owner scorecard metrics. Okay. This is what actually goes into reducing vacancy. And I'll go over all these and I'll tie it into the systems that we use. Okay. So that way, hopefully, you guys can start utilizing some of these things to help the performance of your property. Our tenants are screened very well, and they're actually tenants, people with the identity theft. And right now, across our whole portfolio, we only have 3 people paying late. This is not evictions. This is not obviously towards the beginning of the month. Like if you look here, December 8th through 14th, we have around 4 late tenants at that point. But as we move along during the months, it starts to decrease because they start paying him. We're very proactive in collecting the rent. So we only have 3 delinquencies, average of 3 per month. Why is that important? Obviously, you're getting rent, you're getting the income, but when good tenants do end up vacating the property, they leave the property in good condition, which again ties into, like we were talking about before, ties into great vendors will come into play here, and then obviously good residents. So they're communicating, we're communicating with them about the move outs, we're making sure they move out on their date. They're good residents, they leave the property in good condition. So when we go in and we do make ready, all we're really doing is touch up paints, cleaning, very bare minimum, and it's costing the owners very little to turn the property for one, and we're able to do it in under 10 full days. Obviously, that reduces vacancy. The other part of vacancy, obviously, is days on market. I think we do a good job of screening and marketing and all that, and we get people approved fairly quickly. The average last year was, I think, like 50 days or something. The market's kind of changed. I won't go into that, but we were about 30 days on market. So we get the property ready, we get the property leased out. But once they're in there, we want to make sure that we're communicating with them very well. And why is this important? Because at the end of the day, people want a good home to live in. And the number one reason people do not renew the lease, that's what we want them to do. That's our ultimate goal, is to renew the lease. We're at a 75% renewal last year. Usually we're close to about 80%, which if you look that up is it's going to be hard to beat us in that realm and in that renewal rate. But what goes into that is how well we're taking care of them while they're in the property. And then these other metrics tie into that, right? So when people call us during business hours, we answer the phone 100% of the time. If it's after hours, and you'll talk to an actual person, not AI or anything like that. So we're communicating with them, with an actual person, having a relationship. And we're taking care of the maintenance that they are requesting very quickly and in a very professional manner. If you see here, our work order completions are taking around 5 full days. Now, what goes into that is we receive the work order, troubleshoot it, get the owner approval, get back out there, complete the work, all that. When our vendors leave, this goes again back into great vendors. When they leave, they get rated by the tenants. Okay. When the tenants rate them, they're asking them about, were they professional? Did they show up on time? Were you satisfied with the work, communication, all that? This is our rating right now out of 5, 4.66. This was all of last year out of 5. Our goal is 4.5. We're beating that. We take really good care of the tenants while they're in there. We answer the phone when they call. We do maintenance really well. And that leads to higher renewal rates, which obviously reduce vacancy. Now, some of the tech that we use when we talk about proactive communication, we use something called Lead Simple. This is basically all of our systems and processes in one place. So if you go in here, and I'll try not to get into too much private information here, but maybe I can go into kind of what it looks like. We'll go into the application process here. I'm just going to go into the settings real quick. But you can use something for a consumer. You can build out something like using Monday or Asana that basically just outlines your process of getting things done through the full process of having a property or rental property. So here, like this is like the application. So we have a process and we have steps for each process that we go through. The one that we want to try to focus on, if you're self-managing or maybe you're using another management company and you're not getting a high renewal rate, we focus highly on the renewal process. Okay. And we are very proactive with them. So that way we start the process very early out and everything is in here. And we have templates and things that communicate with with the tenants proactively. So that way we can make sure that we're out in front on the renewal process. Because if you don't get out in front of it, tenants get scared and they don't know what's going to happen and they just give notice to vacate. So I would highly recommend having some type of checklist or process or something around the renewals. So that way you can have the lease end date, start that process 90, 120 days out, that type of thing. The other system that we use for our maintenance is called Property Meld. Now, some of this stuff is built around property managers, but the important thing with this is you want to make sure that you are addressing the issues in a timely manner. And that's really what this does for us as Property Meld. So once we get a work order, we're troubleshooting it right away. We're communicating with the tenants, giving them updates. And then also it allows us to communicate with the vendors. They submit pictures and things like that, and we're able to communicate with them here. But it's very important to make sure that when they submit a work order that we're not delaying it, because that delay that's maybe costing $200 to fix now would actually cost you 5 grand later because they're not going to renew because things weren't taken care of in a professional and timely manner. So we use property melds. You can maybe look into this. If you have one property, it might not make sense. My advice is here, just have an open line communication with the tenants. Make sure you're taking care of things really well. That's really it. The other thing, let's see, did I get anything here? Yeah, I touched on all these. Really, the reduction in the vacancy is what keeps properties performing. And we have systems around it. We track all of it, so we know that's what's important to the performance of a rental, and that's just how we run and do things. I know I went fast. We're ending here a little bit early, but definitely want to open it up to questions now. At this point, if anyone has any questions, we can start the Q&A. Let's see. Do we have any questions? Anybody? I think we did at one point.
While we wait for questions, I think maybe it's a good time to get that link over. I sent it to the hosts, but
Yeah, it looks like maybe I can do it. So I'm
yeah.
gonna put a link in the chat. If you guys want, you can schedule a call with Ariana. I will be there and we can review the property and the performance and try to identify where we can help you save money, get money, that type of thing. One piece is part of the getting better tenants while we wait for some questions. The other part of getting better tenants is pricing the rental correctly. This is very important because if you overprice the rental, what we found is you get the leftover applicants because the ones that are priced right get the majority of the applications, which the majority of the applications are relatively good. So we miss out on those when you overprice it. So even as little as 15 days of vacancy could far outweigh the extra $50, $100 that you're trying to get on the rental price. So it's very important to get that right out of the gates because it's obviously going to reduce the vacancy. And what it's going to also do is leave room for the renewal when that time comes. You're going to get a better pool of applicants, and you're also going to leave room for the renewal. What I mean by that is renewal time comes, we're going to increase the price, but we don't want to increase it to where they're looking outside of their current property and saying, what else is out there? What can I get for what they're offering me? And if you've already priced your property and you get lucky and get somebody in there and you've already priced it higher than what the market is, there's no room for them to renew at something reasonable, if that makes sense. So we want to make sure it's almost even better to even price it a little bit under. That'll lease it even quicker and you actually get more quality tenants and it'll leave more of a gap for the renewal because at the end of the day, that would actually help make up for the extra $1,500. And that ties into getting better residents. Very important to price it right. That gets you better residents, which obviously leads into all the reasons that, they affect the vacancy rate. So yeah. All right. Did we
We
get
have,
any? We have a
yeah,
question?
we do have a question from Janice. Hi, Janice. I hope you're doing well. Her question is, what is your geographical reach?
Okay, that's a good question. So right now we operate in Houston and surrounding markets. So we only operate in Houston. We're not a big national firm. That's why you're talking to me and Ari. We actually
Yeah.
work in the company. It's not like some huge hierarchy. So yeah, to answer your question, Janice, thank you. We operate in Houston and direct surrounding markets. What I mean by that is direct surrounding markets like Houston, Katy, Cypress, Spring, Pearlands, that type of thing. Like we won't go. Pearland is south. We don't go to Lake Jackson, which is further south, or Galveston or anything like that. So Houston and direct surrounding markets. And if you're not familiar with the Houston rental market, it's actually very good. Someone asked, I think Janice asked, basically inside the Grand Parkway Circle. Yes, that's a good, that's
Yeah.
probably a good boundary. Thank you for pointing that out. I think you're gonna
Yeah.
use that. Yes, when you're looking at Southwest all the way to really east at this
Yeah.
point, it hasn't
We do
completely
have some
closed, but
we do have some properties that are just outside of it though. Like in Katy mostly. I would say like South Katy if you go to like Fulshire area, but that's stretching it. What I've seen, and Chase, please correct me if I'm wrong, is if the property is a single family home in the suburban area in surrounding Houston, we're able to make that stretch, usually if it's directly connected to Houston.
yeah, exactly. The direct markets. Once you start getting to, and I would advise if you guys have properties in other markets, it's an important question to ask the geographical reach because at
Yeah.
some point the quality of the vendor reach starts to diminish, right? So like for us, our vendors are really good vendors. They don't go to Galveston. If we picked up Galveston, we'd have to find maybe vendors that aren't as good, and then that obviously affects the vacancy rate because they're not taking care of the tenants and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's important to find a management company if you're in other markets that work directly in the area you have your properties. Now, sometimes investors have multiple properties, they might have them spread out. Just advise, make sure it's the one that's the outlier. Don't base your property management on the outlier, do it on the bulk of the portfolio.
Does it
um,
matter what type of property?
yeah.
Or does that, I mean, like condo, home, or other that needs management?
Yeah, we specialize in single family only. You can find management, obviously, for townhouses and condos and commercial. There's management for really any kind of real estate. We specialize in single family. Generally, if you're looking in terms of investment, condos are generally the now, I'm going to put a caveat. In general, condos are not the best investment because the HOA dues a lot of times kill the return. Now, at some point, the price is so good that doesn't matter. So that's the caveat. Yeah, you make your money, kind of the term that we use, you make your money when you buy the property. That's really when you make your money. But to answer your question, Janice, yes, we do single family. And those tend to be generally the little bit better investment in general.
And like one thing that I want to add is anybody can really manage a property or a house. The idea of using a property manager, especially one that like has like a niche specialist like we do with single family homes, is like a specialist will usually protect your investment a little more and look at it as an investment. It's good to have a picky property manager company or just a property manager with high standards because they will screen harder, like Chase was talking about, price more accurately. We actually have the systems to do all those stuff. We prevent the costly mistakes that with our experience we have seen what works best and what doesn't. And we also maintain a higher quality residence, which at the end of the day is going to give you a better return. So that's pretty much what whenever you have a property that it's your investment, you want to make sure you're working with a property manager that it covers that area. So those are really good questions because that cover that area and specializes in that area and also the type of property that you have.
Yeah, I think you brought up another good point, Ariana, is working with the professional. Like, it's very important to have a lease that works in your market. So, like for us, like we use the Texas Association of Realtors lease. This is the one that's promulgated by the state of Texas. We've seen properties that have napkin leases. Like they just agree to a price on a napkin and they give it to us, and that's what we sometimes we take over properties with like one-page leases, which is crazy. Everything that we do, it's going by a lease or an agreement with the owner. Like that's how we operate. So it's very important to have a lease that is professional and something that's I know some companies use their own leases, some have attorneys draft them up. We like the one that the Association of Realtors, the one that's promulgated by Texas, the one that they
Yeah.
supply us because it protects really everyone in the transaction. And Texas, knock on wood, is a very owner-friendly state. There's some other states that are a little bit more resident or tenant-friendly. We have the benefit of being in Texas, so we definitely use the TAR lease because and we people that come to us that are having issues with tenants, a lot of times it's the lease enforcement that they're having issues with. And some owners, they're super nice and people take advantage of that. And so we go by the
Yeah.
lease. We're very black and white, and that's why it's important to have a good lease.
We have, I know Janice just asked another question. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. I
Yeah.
hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. Is there a threshold on credit score when looking at applications?
Yeah, I think it depends on what type of properties you manage because there are some in Houston that I would call C class
Mhm.
properties in certain areas. In that, you'd probably want to have a little bit lower threshold on the credit score and just screening criteria in general because those are the type of people in that market, right? For us, like it's a minimum of 600 credit score. We found that works well just for our properties. We mainly do A and B class properties, I would say. That's our minimum, but rarely do we have people that are like right up against that. It does happen. I'm not saying, but as far as the ones that we approve, usually their credit scores generally in the 700s, high sixes, or at least in 700s. So I think to answer the question, I think it depends on what type of property, where your property is. If it's in a little bit, I would call lower class, I would loosen up those criteria, if that makes sense. So yeah, great question. Great question.
We have also, I guess we only have a few minutes left, but we have a question from Janice says, within your geographical reach, do you provide renovation services if a low price property needs to be upgraded before renting?
That's yeah, that's a good question. There's an investment strategy called the BRRRR strategy, BRRR, three R's. So it's buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And that's a good way for people to acquire. If you don't know what that is, I would highly recommend looking that up. But that's a good way to acquire properties and build your portfolio with limited access to funds. I'll say limited access, but the traditional model is buy the property, put 20% down, that type of thing. Obviously, that's a lot of cash that you need to invest. With the BRRRR program, you're essentially using the property's equity to refinance out of it. And I won't get into all the details, but it requires little money out of pocket. And there's creative financing ways to do that. Answer your services. Generally, what we will do is we won't be a part of that BRRRR process. We take it on once the property is in need of just a make ready, which we classify as a make ready is everything that's existing, we're going to make sure it's in good condition and working. That's not going in and designing and upgrading. Once you're starting to get into design decisions, that's more of a remodel. We do not provide that service, but we can definitely say, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, after looking at this, or not, this is not renting out, or other properties in the area, this is what the competition is. Recommending those services and getting you with the right people to do the remodel, if that makes sense. But we're definitely not we don't offer flip, I would call it rehab, remodel and rehab services within our firm. We're stick to strictly property management, which includes make ready. And like I said, that's sticking to what's existing and making
Right.
it function and pretty again.
Like the aesthetic renovation piece usually is not going to be our focus. It's just we step in once the upgrades are complete, and sure, like the house is basically resident ready, and we focus more on the performance and the protection of the return of the property at the end of the day.
Yeah, now I will say you can find good property deals that need to be rehabbed, but in terms of the easy button, like if you just want to click the easy button, new construction with a tenant already in place is going to be your best investment right now, just in
Right.
general. And I would move away from the coast because your insurance is going to be cheaper away from the coast. So in like Katy, Cypress, more west. There's one with the new construction, and we do have some new construction opportunity investments that we're working on. So if you want to schedule a call and talk about those, you can definitely do that. But it'll be a tenant in place already, and they're already paying rent, so it's income producing. And the property is new, so you're not going to have a lot of maintenance for the first, I would say, five years, because everything's brand new. You shouldn't be have to replace roof for everything, and typically your insurance costs are going to be lower because it's new construction. So just the performance of an investment, just in general, we found that turnkey, what we call turnkey property, new construction, is going to be your highest performing property, single family property that we found right now. Because even with a remodel, it's a lot of money out of pocket on the remodel. You can refinance out of it, of course, and you can get some of that money back. But there could be known issues. There's a lot of times known issues. Tenants like the idea of new construction,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So yeah, hope that covers some of that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you for attending. Again, I'll send this out if for whatever reason, if you're not here, if you missed it. Sorry you didn't make it, but hopefully you're watching it now. And thank you for everyone who attended. We really appreciate it. We're super grateful. And I hope everyone has an awesome weekend and happy investing.
Thank you, everyone.